Well, thank you very much. Hello, good afternoon, or good morning to everyone who's attending this webinar. We have this idea to manage a few webinars, a series of webinars that will be specifically talking about the self-storage industry, and they will be focused on pricing and revenue management, which are one of the most trendy areas in business, especially now after the economic situations. Today with me, we have Jody Burks. Hello, Jody.
Hi, everyone. And I am in the US, so it is morning for me. But thank you for having me.
Well, of course, our pleasure. Jody is in Miami, and my name is Kris Glabinski. Today I am in Warsaw, in Poland, in Europe. And we also have online Dennis, who's based in UK, in London, who will be managing the chat of today's webinar and answering the questions you have in the Zoom platform, ability to chat with us or ask questions as we go along. So Daniel will be managing the questions. Jody, Business Development Director for StorTrack, over 19 years of experience in the self-storage industry, right?
Yep, you make me sound old, but fortunately yours says over 19 years experience too. So
exactly.
I started as a storage manager in Florida and worked my way up from management to district management to operations manager and ran a portfolio for a local company in Florida. So I have been in, like you said, storage for that many years. I was lucky to come to StorTrack last year. My owner, as he approached his 80s, decided to sell out the management company, and we sold and turned over his properties to third-party management. So I am an owner. I have some small interest in a few properties. I was lucky that he let me purchase, and I am a former operator. So StorTrack and I work great together, and I actually was a StorTrack client back in 2015. We purchased StorTrack to help us with our pricing and revenue management back then, and StorTrack sure has evolved and has a lot more to offer now, better products for owners, operators, investors, and everyone.
Super great. So we have Jody with priceless experience in the self-storage industry. And my name is Kris. I'm the VP Europe for Aggregate Intelligence, which is the mother company of StorTrack. And unlike Judy, I don't have too much experience in self-storage, except maybe the fact that I'm a customer of one for many months now. But I have some experience in revenue management, distribution and pricing, mainly from travel industry. So we thought we will take this idea of us having a chat and putting together two to tango about revenue management and pricing in the storage industry. The idea of these webinars will be, they're very short. They will be 20-30-minute webinars. We're going to present a little bit of education around revenue management. Then we'll talk about some statistics with StorTrack, has lots of data around pricing and products in the self-storage industry. And then we'll have a discussion of what can we conclude from that information. So there's like three pieces: education, statistics to prove whatever is happening, and then have a discussion. And Jody will be a great insight for us to talk about how is it happening in US versus we will be able to talk about what's happening in UK, which is the largest self-storage country outside US. So US is huge and massive for self-storage. Europe and UK is the number two country. We've mentioned StorTrack, so just to explain what StorTrack is a leading provider of business intelligence to self-storage industry. But what that basically means is StorTrack has a mission to help automate the human processes of competitive rate search. So it does take a lot of technology in order to grab all this data and represent that data, that insight, and that business intelligence in front of the user, so that the user doesn't have to. Anyone who has been trying to deal with prices and get some intelligence about the competitors knows how difficult it is and how time-consuming that is. So StorTrack is like a calculator for you. You don't have to calculate on paper. And we will be today using a lot of data and a lot of insight that StorTrack is compiling. So let's start from the beginning. This is the first webinar. There will be more webinars. They will be quite regular webinars, and we will be going one by one into more details and into more complex ideas about revenue management. So the first one will take the opportunity to start really small from the basis. So what revenue management really is. And as being in revenue management for over 19 years now, I think I have read most of the books about revenue management. I have read all the internet about revenue management, and there's massive number of different definitions of revenue management. But me and myself, I came to have this one that is up on your screens, which I think is the most describing definition of RM. It's the ability to optimize revenue through adapting the price to customer willingness to pay. And that's very, the way to understand that is the ability to manage your revenue or increase your revenue through the way you action on the price that addresses customer willingness to pay. And the funny thing here is that the key to revenue management is not the price itself, it's the customer willingness to pay. Because if we're able to understand how customers are willing to pay for a product, we will be able to adapt the price to it, and then we will be able to optimize our revenues. So that definition is slightly describing revenue management, and I'm going to explain why in few words. So this blue line is an economic interpretation of the demand curve. That's what it's called in economy. The horizontal axis is volume in terms of number of potential customers, and the vertical axis is about the price. The lower the price, and then the higher the price. And the demand curve in economy for any product that is out there to sell means that there is a lot of people, a lot of customers willing to pay pretty small price for a certain product. And there's few people that are ready to buy very expensive price for that product. The fact about in economy is that this demand curve always exists. So it exists for hotels, hotel rooms, for aircraft seats, for cinema seats, and it also exists for self-storage units, meaning that there are people who will be willing, if they are considering self-storage, who will be willing to pay less, and there will be many of those, and there will be people who may have the willingness to pay more for whatever the value they see that is more. There will be few of them, but they will be able to pay more. So let's take that an example. We have an 80 square foot storage unit, and we are selling it. The selling price for that is 135 pounds. We promote that price, we send it out to the world, and if we have found the customer, that means that we have actually reached the demand curve at the place and at the point of time where the customer was willing to pay 135 pounds for our storage unit. If they have decided, we have a transaction. Our transaction at the moment, it's called 135 pounds per month, or if the customer will stay for a year, it's going to be worth 1,620 pounds worth of business. Now, if we have the same price and we are addressing the same price all over again, because we have certain amount of units of 80 square foot units, we continue to communicate the price and the product. And if we find a new customer, we have another one and another one and another one for as much as we want them. If we keep the same price, we have, let's say, 3 customers, as in this example. Now we are having a transaction of £405 per month, which is totaling up over a year to £4,860 pounds. But what is important in understanding the demand curve is that there is people that are to the right of the points where we have reached the transaction, and also to the left. And these areas here is in revenue management called the potential, because all these customers who were perceiving our product, our unit, 80 square foot unit, where they could pay more, they actually couldn't pay more because our price was 135. So instead of paying more for it, they were ready to pay for it. They couldn't because our price was 135. So they would have bought for 135. In economy, it's called a surplus. And all the other customers who are to the right of the demand curve were not able to buy. We have discriminated them because we've selected a price of 135 pounds, which for them was not good enough for the product that we're selling. So this here is a potential loss of customers that we were not able to grab because the price was a limit for them. So what is important in revenue management is to understand that demand curve, that it exists, and the fact that there are different people with the different willingness to pay. The willingness to pay may depend on the ability to pay, the perception of value of each customer, the emotions, the urgency, the expectations, the explanations of reasoning for why to buy a certain product. So what revenue management is doing is it is addressing that demand curve in order to adapt the price, but it's very important not to adapt the price to be the cheapest, because I've heard some opinions that revenue management is about decreasing the price, and if you have the cheapest price, you sell more. That's not true. You're decreasing the price because you are addressing a target of customer which is at this side of the demand curve, so that he can be able to afford to buy your product. And also, we are not increasing the prices in order to be the most posh, the most arrogant, or the most expensive product out there, but we are addressing the type of customer from that segment who is ready to pay more. So within revenue management, we try to work on price dynamics on different price level that will address the same product to a different type of customer. And mathematically, we do that so that it can make sense. Instead of having, as you see the calculation example in here, instead of selling to 3 different people at 135, we are actually manipulating the price so that the price is lower at some point of time, like in this example, 125. And if the price is lower, there's more people willing to buy that price. So we're selling 2 units now, not just 1. 135 is our normal price, and we are selling and addressing it, then we're selling 1 product of that. And then we have a slightly price increase for those who have higher willingness to pay for the product. And we are selling this 139. So that when you take the math and you calculate it, instead of making 405 pounds per month, now we're making 524 pounds per month, per year, per scale, and per all the units. If we manage the prices well, we actually are increasing the revenue. And that is exactly what revenue management is doing in most of the industries. And that's why we call it the ability to optimize your revenue, because the bottom line is affected by how much revenue you produce, and the revenue that you produce is dependent on the fact that the price of the product, the value of the product that you sell to a different type of customer. And the trick in revenue management is to understand the demand's willingness to pay. This is the key. It's not the price itself. It's not really the number, but it's about the willingness to pay of the customer, because now, understanding the demand curve, we can actually target different type of customer according to their behavior, according to who they are, and so that we optimize our revenues. So to make a good revenue management and pricing decisions, we need to have some information that will allow us to understand that customer. And one of the things that in hotels or airline revenue management, first thing is good knowledge of the product and your competition. It is a good knowledge about what prices are being applied for what product and how these prices are changing, because the proposition for the customer is overwhelming. They have a selection of different suppliers, different products, and different prices, and then they make the decision based on that. So we have to be on top of what is being offered on the market. We need to have the information about how many products do we have left to sell, and we need the information about the customer reservations habit. When each type of customer, whether he's from up the curve or below the curve or in the middle of the curve, when do they usually reserve or book our product? So, Jody, does that kind of sound similar in the self-storage industry as well?
Absolutely. Particularly, here in the U.S., we're using the website to promote a lot of this information, like you said, so that the customer has that experience to reserve or rent the unit there. But you've put it in such, I think, great terms and so much simpler. I think we overthink it sometimes, and truly revenue management can be applied to hotel, airlines, and absolutely the storage industry.
So would you say that you would look at some of these things that you need to have, like competitor information about products, prices? You need to be aware how many units you have to sell, because you might find yourself having sold all the units, and then you may wonder, is that good or bad? Because if you have sold it, that means maybe you've sold it too cheap. Or if you have too many available, then maybe your prices are too high. So would you look at competitors, prices, vacancies, and the behavior of customers when they book, for how long, etc.?
That's probably one of the areas where the storage industry will probably evolve. Especially I think with COVID now, and that we are reserving and renting more units online. Typically, the journey may be longer in self-storage, because if you're going to go book a hotel room, you decide, I want to go to the beach this weekend. So you reserve that room. The journey for the customer in storage may be a month or two out. I'm selling my home. I need to inquire about it. So that part would probably be a little harder or different for us to track. But certainly you have to know your own data first, like you said, how many units you have, what your price is now, information about vacancies, if your units are vacating more often or during certain times. The information, though, like you said, about really supply and demand, you have to know who your competitor is. You have to know what inventory they're offering to help you make some of these good revenue management decisions.
Super. So when I started to get involved in the self-storage industry, I have heard this opinions that revenue management is something that will bring our prices down. So it will just as if something came in and said, if you sell cheaper, you will have more customers, so you'll sell better, you will outperform your competitors. But that's not really true, is it?
No, I think your slide with the the demand and the the economies of scale of being on one side of the price or the other, the lower or the higher price. I think the storage industry could take some better lessons from that. I think sometimes we set one rate, and I think we could pick up more customers, like you said, if we spread out that curve to know that you may attract some with the low price, and you may attract some in the middle and some with the high price. So the biggest thing here in the US, I think, that has driven down price is more supply, more competitors, more competition. So we all have to work better at setting our rates so that we don't become the low price leader or the cheap price. And then I think you're going to talk a little more about promotions and how that could offset some of your pricing decisions there also.
Yes, but before we get into the promotions, there is a big difference between optimized price and the lowest price. So it's very interesting because coming from, let's say, hotel industry, which is very competitive, and yes, you're right. If I have an idea of going to the beach this weekend, I'm going to go to booking.com and book my hotel. The prices are transparent, availability is transparent. I can buy it immediately. With self-storage, it's different because people take more planning and then plan for self-storage for longer. That makes it actually more secure because I go to a hotel for a few nights, and if I go to self-storage, like, I'm already a year in self-storage.
Right.
So the commitment is more secure from the self-storage perspective. But still, that difference between optimized price and lowest price is something that I would like to explain, because when we discussed it with few self-storage managers, they told me that it's not about price, Kris. And in self-storage industry, we focus on the value that we give to the customer. So it's not really about the price. And I was thinking that maybe there is a difference in the industry where they really, because of the longer term relationship, maybe that value is there. But then I went to Google and I've just Googled self-storage London, and this is what I see. So I was kind of confused. Let me filter that for you. I'll give you the focus. This is the first page of Google when I search for self-storage London. Lowest price, cheap from £1, cheap, right? So
Right.
On one hand side, people say it's not about price and it's not about the cheapest price. But on the other hand, that's what they promote. That's what they market. This seems like to be something that attracts the customer, or am I confused?
I think your instinct is, if there is a low price out there and you're searching for it, this is going to attract customers.
Okay, but
so there's probably a little of both.
Okay, but if we don't want to be about the price, we want to be about value. We should not be maybe really focusing our communications on the cheapest, and especially with the word cheapest or lowest price. But actually, we should start thinking about the optimized price, because the difference
and the value,
because the difference is now. Here's a complex slide, but I'll try to explain it. We have this demand curve, right? A lot of people for low price, few people for higher price. You can have a calculation you can make a calculation for price optimization. This is something that in hotel industry, every hotel would be really good at, based on the historical different types of customers and different types of reservations. They can calculate the correlation between the price and the volume. So obviously, based on this demand curve, the higher the price, the lower number of potential customers you're selling. And I did this example for our storage unit, the 80 square foot meter. And I've calculated, based on the historical factors, that if I would have applied £20 price for that unit, I would get 81 customers from the demand curve. from my market that would be willing to buy my unit. But if I applied 25 pounds, then I would only get from that market demand 79, and so on. So when the price goes up, the number of potential customers decrease. So if I wanted to be like the most expensive, I would be 155 pounds per unit, but I would only sell it to 14. And the trick with price optimization is it's not about being the cheapest, because the cheapest only sounds good for marketing, but doesn't really look good on your revenue, although you're saying a lot of volumes. And it's not really about being the most expensive, because that makes you look good by the price, but not by the number of customers you have. So the optimized price is most important.
Yes.
If you calculate 20 times 81, we get 1,620 pounds per month. That's our revenue that we would have gotten if I had my unit sold at 20 pounds. If I was selling at 155 pounds, you see the difference. The spread between the prices is quite significant. I would be earning 2,000 euros. So not much, but still better. However, according to price optimization calculation, selling my product at 90 pounds would sell me 46 units, and that would make me 4,140 pounds per month. Now, looking at the scalability per year, that means almost 50,000 pounds. From 20, I could be making 50, right? This is why revenue management and price dynamics, price optimization come in, because they really affect the bottom line. If the revenue can be increased by half, by half, or even more, then obviously your profitability is increasing, especially that the price tricks are not really expensive to invest in, right? So there's cost base remains the same, but you can double your revenues. That means you're kind of like tripling your profits. So I think for self-storage industry, it is very important to understand and not talk about maybe the cheapest prices, but the most optimal prices, and then try to figure out how do we promote that. So how do we address each different type of customer from that demand curve, and when to adjust the rates. I mean, if they are impacting your bottom line, the more you adjust the price, the better. And in revenue management, there's a lot of science, of course, but there's also a lot of experience that is needed and research. So very often you will never know what will happen until you try, but you have to be ready to make that try. And in order to make that try, you need to have the basic information, like we have mentioned, about prices, about vacancies, about products, and about the customer itself, so that we can have these educated price management tactics, which will make the price really dynamic, to get away from the cheapest and move into the optimal pricing. And I would assume that in US is a very advanced self-storage market. I assume that the price dynamics in US is quite significant.
Like I said, I still think yes. We still all have to, look at our markets and use those tools. So, and sometimes it varies here, maybe geographically. It might be more on the West Coast that they use promotion, more on the East Coast price. But yes, we have to use it all.
So let's see what's happening with UK prices. We took some data from StorTrack, historical data, and we started to understand what is the price dynamics in the UK market, because really it's the price dynamics or the cheapest prices. It's either optimizing or selling cheapest prices. So this is an insight and information about the average prices that are for the period from 2018 to 2020 June. I have categorized the units into small, medium, large, and extra large. So here we have the small units of 20 and 25 square foot, and these are the average prices that have been applied historically, in average, for the whole UK market. And what is interesting to see that I could put one line in here at around February of 2019, where so since July 2018, the prices were slightly going down until summer of February 2019, where the prices started to pick up. They were picking up throughout the whole summer until that period of August, September, when they have flattened out. But they have flattened out at a quite level that was from before 2018. So the prices dropped, increased, and then bottomed out until somewhere at the end of 2019, when the dynamics have picked up these prices again. And obviously we entered the very unusual 2020, where the prices have leveled out. So although you don't see too much of price dynamics, because this in hotel industry or in airline industry, that probably would look like EKG type of report, you still see some price movements, and sometimes some significant price movements. You also can tell from the graph that there is some sort of correlation between the products. So if that price goes down, if the price for 25 square foot unit goes down, the price for 20 square foot unit also goes down. So there is an interdependence between the two types of products. And if you can memorize this chart, it is a little floating. In fact, what we do as pricing managers, even if we want to analyze the market, we use standard deviation deviation in order to understand that floating of prices, because in the stable economic countries, prices are stably floating from minimum to the maximum range. And in fact, standard derivation is showing us where are most of the prices. So for small units in self-storage in UK, the average price is about £20, and you can see 30 and 34 and 34, 68% of all the prices of all the small units go between about £10 to £30. So that's the span of prices that have been used since 2018 to 2020. Maybe it's not considered as big price dynamics, but between 10 and 30, there's like 3 times the difference. And that means that some of the units are using price dynamics and some of the other units are not. And therefore, it becomes a great advantage for those who are adapting the price to the market, to the demand, and to that, the most important, customer willingness to pay. And then, as you've mentioned, because we've discussed these results before, Jody, what I have realized is that although price dynamics maybe are not the biggest on the UK market, what is really big is the promotions, right? So for small units, you see there is about 250 types of different promotions that were advertised or displayed on self-storage, by self-storage locations. And they are really creative. Some of them are like you see, first 26 weeks for half price, 5% off your monthly storage costs when you buy us, pay $9.90 per week for 8 weeks, etc., etc. In fact, only in 2019, only 13% of times there was no promotion published. All the others, all the units that we have been analyzing, every single day, most of the days, they were having some promotion. So although price dynamics is not that big, the promotional activity is huge. And the most popular promotion, you know what it was, Jody? 50% off for the first 8 weeks. That apparently seems to be like the most attractive promotion from the UK self-storage industry. It's very interesting because as being a customer of self-storage, it is all about making me enter the business, because once
Right.
I enter, I stay. Isn't that right?
Yes.
So
And I would say here, 50% off 2 months. So you're doing 50% off 8 weeks. So it's essentially the same promotion would 50% once we do the data. I would say that that's probably the most common promotion here in the States also.
really. So probably it depends for how long the stay is, but I think that the first 2 months are most critical for the customer. So if you attract them to enter the business, and then if you promote them to stay in business for 2 months, then to be honest, it's the same like me. I don't even know what I have in my self storage. But I pay. But I pay. It's no
That's good.
longer
We
50%,
like
but
paying
I pay.
customers.
And that's really great business. So
Yes.
taking a look at some other unit prices, this is the medium section of units between 35 and 80 square foot sizes. You can see here a much more diverse price changes with much bigger span. And again, you can see the repeating phases. Up somewhere until the beginning of 2019, prices were pretty stable. Then something happened, and I don't know. We have a lot of people watching this webinar. If you would like to join and add comments, or if you have questions, Daniel is there to answer them. But it would be really interesting to understand what happened on February 2019, that the prices jumped and started to be really shaky up somewhere until the end of that year. Obviously, taking into consideration 2020 has a different requires a different understanding, but we can see the movement of price dynamics. So it really enters the price dynamics enter the UK market, and it's very interesting to see where that will go, because considering all the promotions activity, considering all the spend you have to do for Google advertising to promote these promotions, to communicate these promotions, that's really something interesting. Looking at the middle units, medium units, the average price now is about £10 higher than the small one, so it's 30 pounds. And the span of 68%, almost 70% of all prices is between 14 and 47. So that's where the pricing activity can be. If you price 47, it's like we have explained in the graph, you may be, and in the optimization chart, you may not necessarily be optimizing your revenue. And if you're selling at 14, you may be the cheapest, but not necessarily optimizing your revenue and your bottom line. That doesn't really mean that 30 is the best price, because it's just the average, mathematical average. It's the calculation of optimization that really is the key to success. And again, for medium, it's actually not 13, but now 19% of times there was no promotion. So the promotions for middle-sized units is a little bit lesser than of the small ones, but still it follows the same concept. So we have 50% of the first 8 weeks to be the most popular promotional slogan advertised by the units, which means that maybe and possibly, but maybe it's the same message that goes across to, could be different type of customer, because whoever is looking for a small unit may be triggered by different willingness either to pay or the need or for value, versus another person who is looking for a medium-sized one. The reasoning for renting self-storage could be very different, like when you're looking at a small unit and when you're looking at medium unit. Yet the promotional activity is still the same. Now, when we look at the large units, it's again, it doesn't really provide any of the dynamics, almost none. So the higher the unit, the less price dynamics are about it. So it's maybe because it's less price sensitive, or maybe it's because it's the smaller units are more popular, so there's more rotation for the small units, and that's why more price dynamics come into the smaller units. Could that be the thing, Jody?
Could be. I would say some of it's going to be based on your own particular occupancy number, how many of those units you have. Like
True.
you said, maybe, and we'd have to do more analytics on it, but if larger units, people stay longer because they have more belongings to move in. So as you said, the churn on the smaller units is probably quicker. So they're available more often, so some kind of a promotion or price change to get them in there would make sense.
Right, which is also another good aspect to take into consideration, and to be aware of what is available on the market, what your competition is offering, how much of those small units they have that rotate faster, and how many of those larger units they have, which tend to be more loyal and more pricey. Because again, this is the supply that is out there for the customer, for the demand that is buying that. So understanding what competition has in terms of the product is really crucial, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So again, here the average price is £67 for those larger units, and the span is between 30 and 103 pounds. So you can see that the higher we go with the units, the bigger the units, actually the prices also expand. And there is some prices that are being applied, like £30 could be an advertised promotional activity. It could be something really, really unusual, but it happens. So that span there tells us that the flexibility of prices for larger units is quite significant. Again, probably the same scenario, even for the larger units that are priced more expensive. The same 50% off for the first 2 months or 8 weeks is the most attractive promotional activity, which probably makes up for the price dynamics that are being applied. And the last one that I have, I thought it was also interesting to exclude that from the large ones, is the extra large units of 200 square foot, where the price is significant, but as you can see, it's quite flat. The dynamics historically are quite steady, with the exception of that June, where prices were significantly dropped. Could be the COVID, or could be the potential demand for that large units. And the price span here is not so much off from the large ones. So you see it's £107 from 60 to 155 of the pound for storages like this. Here we observe that only 8% of times was no promotions published. So, but that is because there's lower units available of that size. Still, the same type of promotion always applies. So it seems like there's one promotion that hits on all the type of products to the customer. And what is important is to get that customer on board so that he doesn't join the competition. He joins me. I've also been discussing this with one of the self-storage consultants in the UK market, that there's a lot of training going on for people who answer phones, because prices in UK market are not always published. So you have to take an effort as a customer to call in order to ask for a price and ask to get more information. And people need to be trained on how not to lose that calling customer, because it may be a potential customer. It's kind of like an offline offline optimization. So the return on the click-through rate, if you have click-through rate, the return on investment, the same conversion happens in an offline market when you call the self-storage unit and you start discussing the prices. So what we just did is we presented almost 1 to 3 million prices into a couple of slides, which kind of describe what the UK market is. We looked at several hundreds of units per each category. So we really did do a lot of analysis on that, but we've created just a very top line conclusions. If you consider that every price can be analyzed individually for every day, this just gives you the idea of how much detailed analysis can actually be done, and what is the size of the market and competition. The reason why I highlighted the two types of units, medium and large, is that you can see that there is twice the number of prices within those units versus in the small and in the extra large. That is because this is the most popular product, but also the most dynamic product. So the more dynamics in prices, the more prices there is, and that's almost a double. So that's what's happening on the UK market. Do you think, Jody, that in America would be different, or if we did the analysis, we would find similar conclusions?
I think we have more data for the U.S., more facilities, so more prices. I think the charts would be a little more price dynamic, maybe a little less promotion dynamic. So, like I said, it seems to also be by region here that some areas promote promotions more and some promote price more. But I think that will be for the next webinar. We'll do some U.S. numbers, huh?
Yes, we'll do some U.S. numbers, and we'll get some U.S. learnings for sure, especially that I think U.S. is more focused on price dynamics and the UK is more focused on promotional activity. And obviously there is no right or wrong. It's just a different approach. Either you invest in your price dynamics or you invest in your Google Analytics and marketing to promote. So last but not least, I want to take a look at the post-COVID situation. The highlighted is different products. You can see 20 and 25 square foot units, 35 to 80, how they reacted in the COVID times, 100 to 160, and then the 200. And basically, what seems to be here is that the prices remained as they are, except maybe for this drop of the 200 square foot units. Most of the prices seem to be the same, which is, from my travel experience, is really good, because a lot of hotels shut down, a lot of airlines shut down. The prices now are super crazy, and there's lots of challenge in those industries. While seems like self-storage has been either immune to COVID in terms of economics, or could it be that it will come back later because of the longer ramp-up time, longer living customer?
Yeah.
So it's either late aftermath or no aftermath at all, and it makes it even more valuable industry, especially for investors. So in conclusion, I would say that, and I would leave the viewers with some of the key findings. If it's not about dynamic pricing, that it will always be about lowest pricing, because whatever price you set, that price will be the lowest, at least in your self storage. There will always be competition that will go below price, and that is the normal economic activity in the competitive markets. So it's either dynamic or it's the lowest. And self-storage has been not touched much about from COVID, or not as much as the other industries. Obviously, we have not discussed the vacancy issues, so we only talk about prices. But if the prices remain stable, that means that any recovery will be much faster. It'll take many, many years for hotels who drop the prices to go back to the level before COVID. And then obviously something to think about is that the knowledge about the customer, competition, and company are the key ingredients in revenue management and price optimization. And there is technology out there that can help humans, support humans, and not necessarily replace them. Right, Jody?
Absolutely.
So thank you very much for attending this webinar. It has been recorded, so we will be sharing on our site the recording of that webinar. We're going to have more webinars. We're going to have them frequently. If you like to join our conversation and be part in the of the webinars, please feel free to contact us either at the number shown over here or at the email info@stortrack.com. We'll be happy to invite guests. We will have different topics, all related to pricing and revenue management. I think Jody has given a sneak preview of the next one, which will be about price differentiations in between the same kind of physical same products, and how do you apply different price to same type of product so that there is no cannibalization. So that's what's going to come at the next webinar. But until then, thank you very much for joining. Hopefully, I didn't see that, but Daniel, I hope we had some nice and good questions. And please bear with us until the next webinar. And Jody, thank you for participating.